All right. So, hi everyone, it's Richard Rich, back at it again for another collaboration video. I'm back with a guest of mine who was actually on my channel not too long ago, Antoni Garcia. Good to see you again. How are you doing today?
Happy holidays. I've been very busy, but I've been having a lot of fun with the content I've been editing thus far.
Okay, yes.
You will tune into my tribute to the Big Bad Beetleborgs Christmas special, Christmas Bells and Phasm Spells, which will be released onto YouTube a little bit later.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and we were talking off camera, Antonio, like the process of editing. Like, explain like to some of the YouTubers or some of the ones who don't do editing, like how your process is when it comes to editing videos and even the ideas that come for it.
My reviews and tributes, lookbacks, slams, and critiques, they're recorded vlog style. So I
Okay.
always have my camera prepared and there are going to be like multiple takes. And
Mhm.
during the time I'm recording, there will be occasions where I will fumble and
Right.
I'll have to repeat certain phrases that I wanted to state in terms of my train of thought.
Mhm.
And once I'm done recording everything to the full, that's when I open up my editing software.
Sure.
Now, with this laptop, I'm now using Hit Film, which is
Okay.
actually a nice editing software. And wherever the fumbles are, I have to cut them out and paste them with what I intended to say with the takes that I thought
Right.
had a lot more fluidity going on,
Sure.
just to
Sure.
make sure that the fluidity is smooth and just to make sure that everything is going okay. And I also ensure that I add in visual aid like screenshots.
Yes.
Sometimes the screenshots come from images that I found on Google, and other
Mhm.
times, if there are not so many screenshots, I would add in my own screenshots from the video that I've watched.
Mhm.
And it's done with, in the case of this laptop, I press um, I press Shift
Sure.
and the Windows sign and S, I believe. Yeah, S.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
then just select what needs to be cropped out, edit it, and it's also part of the video. So you can
Mhm.
imagine how tedious it can be,
Yeah.
but also how much dedication you need to have in order to make something be released.
Yeah.
And once that is done being edited, it'll have to be converted to a file and then uploaded onto YouTube, more specifically as an MP4 file.
Yeah. I really love the way you said that, Tony. It's like the dedication because it could be a video that maybe the duration could only be 10 minutes or even 15 minutes, but the editing time you put into it is a lot. And I can relate.
Exactly.
Yes, it is. Yes. Okay. So you said like it gets converted to the MP4 file. When you do upload it to YouTube, Anthony, do you keep the hard copy? Because I know sometimes these files, especially if it's getting converted to like a HD file, it's like 720p, 1080p, it can be a lot of space on your computer. Do you keep the original file?
I I do not, because I think that since it's already uploaded onto YouTube complete with a thumbnail, I thought it would be okay if just to delete it and then proceed to another project, because my project's already uploaded onto YouTube. And if ever there's something going on with it, I could at least um find a special site to download
Sure.
my video and then to save it.
Mhm.
But so far, I don't think there have been any copyright strikes going on because, as I stated before, my videos are vlog style, well, more specifically the reviews, and the only times that I would ever use um, visual aids is usually in the form of screenshots.
Mhm. Yeah. Screenshots as well. Yeah, because as you mentioned, copy strikes is a common thing that happens on YouTube, and sometimes you're
Absolutely.
unaware. You're unaware. You'll be like, "No, I didn't really use any copyrighted material." Even the videos. Sometimes if it's not, if they detect it as it's a long video that you use, they can just strike it. So you have to
Mhm.
be careful.
Exactly. You really have to be very careful of all this type of um, the legality of what goes on with creating content, especially on YouTube, because it has seen a lot of contention. There are those people who do reviews and do vlogs and all that who crit- criticize YouTube for being draconian.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
I can totally understand where they're coming from.
Yeah. Some of the content creators have been not so lucky. They maybe again they posted the wrong video, and YouTube has showed them literally no mercy. They may have given them straight a coverage strike. Anthony, wait, what about like the thumbnails? Because I think a thumbnail is a very important factor,
Exactly.
especially on YouTube. How does it go into your creating style for thumbnails for that
I
YouTube?
was lucky to have had some really good artist friends in a former schoolmate of mine from my
Okay,
high school years named Ross Garson. You should check out his stuff. It's absolutely great.
awesome.
I use one of the thumbnails or one of his images that he's made of me
Mm.
as the main image for my reviews of television shows or cartoons.
Awesome.
Um, then, when it comes to music reviews, I was fortunate to have had another good friend in Caitlin Jewell who also
Okay.
made a thumbnail, and I would use that for album reviews, music reviews, anything that's music related. Um, and in terms of like movie reviews, I would have like I would I would make a photo of myself
Okay.
and add in some of the screenshots
Hmm.
as a sort of effect and put in
Sure.
the title below.
Sure.
So
It's kind of like a background.
I
Mhm.
really have my artist friends to thank. And as much as I would have loved to draw my own screenshots, that would also take a whole lot of time because A, I would rather use my own drawings just for deviant art, and
Mhm.
B, it's also kind of it's also rather time consuming to
Yeah.
like draw my own um screenshots or not screenshots but
Or
thumbnails.
thumbnails.
Thumbnail.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it does take a lot of
Yeah.
time and effort. I mean, I'm only one person and I'm doing and editing all these videos,
Yeah.
like recording myself.
Whew. Yeah, as Antonio, you said, the time consuming, all of that, like because some some YouTubers, especially even the bigger ones, they do have a whole team, and that's where some people gotta like forget. Like, there's someone who can handle the thumbnails, who can handle the editing, even just the recording. So when you're like kind of like us, where we're doing like more legit multitasking, we have to really focus on the priority, what has to be put out.
Exactly. I mean, it's pretty much it may be a one man show, but the people that I also have to thank for the icons for creating those icons are my really good artist friends, and I I really owe it to them too.
No, excellent. We can definitely put those links in the description to their art portfolio pages.
Sure.
Don't be pulling that. So, and I have to address this. I know grew up in the same time, similar ages, and Tony. What did you think of the Power Rangers? Most importantly, what happened to the Green Ranger, David Frank?
Oh my, I mean,
Yeah.
Jason David Frank, I love him so much as a martial artist. He had strength, agility, flexibility, speed, and power just rolled up into one package. And I know that he was also the very popular breakthrough actor in
Yeah.
all of Power Rangers. I mean, especially considering that there was nobody else who could portray Tommy Oliver
Mm.
other than Jason David Frank. I mean, there is no wonder why he has stayed with the franchise for many years to come. From his tenure as the Sixth Ranger in his Green Ranger years to his transition to the White Ranger, although there was a lot of backstage talk
Yeah.
that Brad Hawkins was supposed to be the new Sixth Ranger, and Jason David Frank was supposed to have had another show under his belt called Cybertron, in which he played Adam Steele.
Right.
But although the pilot was also on YouTube, he ended up coming back to Power Rangers because the kids, well, especially the kids, wanted Tommy back.
Mm.
There was no other Ranger who could fit in that Sixth Ranger mold other than Tommy. And after all that, Brad Hawkins ended up starring in VR Troopers alongside Sarah Brown and Michael Hollander, credited as Michael Bacon.
Mm.
So Jason David Frank as Tommy did go through such a metamorphosis. I
Sure.
mean, starting out as the Sixth Ranger, and then after what happened to Austin St. John, Tui Trang, and
Mhm.
Walter Manuel Jones, he somehow ended up becoming the leader
Mhm.
because this was also around the time where there was the rookie Red Ranger in Rocky DeSantos, played by Steve Cardenas.
Yeah.
And because of Jason David Frank's popularity in the Power Rangers franchise, he also released two karate instructional videos.
Mhm.
One was the Green Ranger kata, and the other was the White Ranger kata. And here's something you'll notice
Please.
about his White Ranger kata video. He doesn't wear an all white gi. No, his gi is all red. It's as if to foreshadow his upcoming tenure as the Red Ranger
Ah,
in Power Rangers Zeo,
Zio.
as well as the first half of Power Rangers Turbo.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there is no doubt that Jason David Frank was extremely well loved and very popular as Tommy Oliver from Mighty Morphin seasons one to
Mhm.
three to Zeo to the first half of Turbo to Forever Red in Wild Force to his tenure as the mentor figure slash
Mhm.
adult Power Ranger
The legend.
in Dino Thunder, and even to his appearances on Super Mega Force,
Mhm.
despite it being a huge mess, all the way to Ninja Steel. So there is no doubt that he has been extremely busy as a Power Ranger, as well as had some roles outside Power Rangers, like his tenure as a bully in Family Matters.
Ah, I can remember. I just remembered it. Yeah. It's
Yes, he played one of the cronies on Family Matters, and he also had some roles in Sweet Valley High, where he played a recurring character.
Mhm.
Um, but it seems like he could not really escape being a Power Rangers actor.
Right. Right. Right.
And I know that although that he had a lot of fame and arguably a lot of fortune under his belt, being a long-staying Power Rangers actor, especially since he was also prioritizing on the fans, and he
Yeah.
always made sure that he did his role as a Power Rangers actor for the fans. And he also was a karate instructor ever
Yeah.
since he was 18 years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
So he's been doing a lot of martial arts ever
Especially-
since he was a kid. And his main martial arts were Shotokan and
Mhm.
Wadoryu Karate.
Yeah.
But despite all that, there were also some issues that
Mm.
he also had, and the cast also had with Jason David Frank. And when I also relayed those issues said by other people, a lot of his fans thought that, oh, how dare you say that about him?
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
all that. But some of it was quite true. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because he did have some contention with Austin St. John.
Yes, I think it was like a
Oh my
battle of
God.
egos. Like there was a lot of egos on set.
Exactly, exactly. You got to keep in mind that Jason David Frank, when he was on Power Rangers and when they were filming the first season, he was 19 years old,
Oh,
and Austin St. John was 18 years old. So ASJ was the youngest of the cast before Johnny Young Bosch
hmm.
ended up replacing him. Well,
Yeah,
not necessarily as the Red Ranger, but as the youngest
yeah.
actor to play a Power Ranger. Um, because here, here's something funny about Jason Lee Scott. Because although he's like the big brother of the group, and
Mhm.
although Tommy Oliver is arguably the same age as he is, if not slightly older by like a week, Jason David Frank and Austin St. John are actually a year apart, with
Okay.
Jason David Frank being a year older than Austin St. John. And something fun that you also realize is that they were also born on the same month.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, Jason David Frank was both Jason David Frank and Austin St. John were born in September. So there was that legendary feud that they
Yeah.
had behind the scenes.
Hmm.
And a lot of us who've heard about it, and especially when it came to Jason David Frank complaining about it in conventions, it was just the classic case of two extremely talented martial artists who had a whole lot to go for them and a bright future ahead of them, who just could not control their egos. Nobody was innocent.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
Amy
Yeah.
Jo Johnson had this to say about Austin St. John, because she always believed that he always told tall tales, which she thought were funny. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that Jason David Frank was also extremely irritated at the time.
Hmm.
And if you watched the behind the scenes of what was going on in Turbo, especially when Paul Schreer and Jason Narvey were asking the cast members about Austin St. John's chair,
Hmm.
it was a sort of unsubtle reference slash jab
Like
to what
a
Austin
dig at
St.
them.
John used to be as a teenager with attitude. I mean, the chair was sort of meant to represent Austin St. John's ego. And you'll know that Catherine Sutherland, she had, well, she didn't have to have any contention about it. And she said that she can't talk about it. It's a really delicate issue, which I think is a sort of subtext to her saying that, well, she had nothing against Austin St. John. Maybe when she heard Jason David Frank complain about him and, tell stories about him, I don't think she necessarily took it to heart. She just understood it as, well, it's his opinion, it's his experience, and how who am I to judge? And Catherine Sutherland was definitely a sweet person about it. So she had no qualms, and I think she and Austin St. John ended up being good friends. But Jason David Frank, when you saw Paul Schreer and Jason Narvey ask about Austin St. John's chair, his body language and his facial expressions were clear that he still had a lot of
Ill will. Like
ill
yeah.
will
Yeah.
against Austin St. John. He kept
Yeah.
telling them, no, I can't talk about his chair. I don't want to talk about his chair. And it's just a dumb looking chair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Tony as well. You mentioned as well. Great explanation on this. You mentioned as well, like he couldn't escape being the Power Ranger. And he was a child star, more or less. He was in his late teens, kind of early
Yes, he was in his
adulthood.
late teens.
Yeah, so it's like he kind of fell into that typecasting, kind of similar to actors like Jaleel White from Family Matters, or even Macaulay Culkin from Home
from Home
Alone.
Alone.
Yeah,
Yes.
what are your thoughts on that? Like the child stars who can't really escape their child roles and become typecast.
Oh my goodness. It's difficult because on the one hand, yes, they'll always be remembered as this character or that character. On the other hand, even when they're trying to spread their wings to other characters and other challenging roles, it can go in any direction. I mean, there are some who manage to do it well, and there are others who either couldn't escape it or are living in the past or
Yeah.
just couldn't even get over it. I mean, what's also kind of sad about Jason David Frank's passing is the potential he could have had a lot more, especially in voiceover work.
Yeah.
Because I always keep telling myself that, well, JDF's passing was, like I said, the most unfair thing to
Yeah.
happen.
Felt it.
Um,
Mhm.
49 years old, and I mean, he's been dealing with a lot of issues with the family and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
issues with his finances and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's like a
it's,
whole kind of culmination of all these
yeah,
events.
but I mean, I think he also, I mean, it also delved into like his own mental health issues. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe that's why he had all these issues with different people because it's like dealing with the demons that he had in himself. I mean, aside from Austin St. John, in terms of the problems that he had with him, he initially had problems with Steve Cardenas. I mean, I should know
Mm.
because there is a video that a fellow YouTuber made by the name of by the screen name of the Italian Stallion 51.
I
If you
know
know.
him. Yeah, yeah. Subscribe to him.
Oh yeah, he's definitely a lot of fun. I love his reviews and
Yeah.
I love his content on martial arts and um, uh, Power Rangers, especially in his younger years. But he said before he took the video down that Jason David Frank used to have problems with Steve Cardenas because,
Mm.
well, Steve, when he got on Power Rangers as the new Red Ranger, Rocky DeSantos, he would drink, he would smoke
Right,
pot,
right.
he would party, and he would have sex with
Oh,
a
really?
couple of the
Like,
moms from his karate schools, or in how Fabio put it, bang one of the moms or bang a couple of the moms from his karate school and bang various women.
right. He got
Yeah.
around. He got around. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's rather understandable where Jason David Frank was coming from with his initial annoyance of Steve Cardenas. I mean, look at them
Mm-hmm.
these days. They ended up being very good friends.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I could understand his initial annoyance because Jason David Frank, he came from a very Christian family.
Right.
So it was very clear to see that he had to do his best to also be a role model to not only Power Rangers fans, young Power Rangers fans especially, but also students. I mean, we also got to understand that he also had a position of authority as a karate instructor. And of course, when you're also on a show mainly targeted towards children and young teenagers, such as Power Rangers, chances of your audience being absolutely impressionable is very
Yeah,
high.
yeah.
So when you have somebody like Steve, who was initially this party boy who drank and smoked pot and partied,
Mm-hmm.
that would potentially cause some contention.
Yeah,
And then when Austin St. John returned to Zio, apparently there were some issues going on there.
yeah,
And interestingly enough, before Austin St. John ended up returning to Zio,
yeah. The Gold Ranger. He was the gold.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
Brad Hawkins was actually the voice of the first Gold Ranger.
Mm.
Oh, but it's not just Brad Hawkins from VR Troopers alone who had a contribution in Zio. No, also Sarah Brown.
Sarah Brown.
She also portrayed Heather, who
Mm-hmm.
was a girl at the ski resort that took a liking to Tommy. after what happened with the whole Dear John letter, which I think if you were to ask any Tom Burley shipper or any Tom Burley fan, they would just scream and rage quit on the writer, saying that it's their fault for taking that whole relationship that Tommy and Kimberly had for granted and just saying that, oh, what? Kimberly saw him as like a brother? No, no, that wasn't true.
You could
Tommy
see
and
there was
Kimberly were
more.
practically boyfriend and girlfriend.
You could see even when they've done like Comic Cons or outside the Power Rangers, there's very much affection between them. I can't be seen as more than a brother and sister.
Exactly. But I also understand why Kimberly was written out in like the later part of season
Sure.
3. I think it's also because of Amy Jo Johnson wanting to do a lot more outside Power Rangers. You got to bear in mind that Amy Jo Johnson was the second eldest cast member.
Oh yeah.
When she started. I mean, yes, her character Kimberly was arguably a bit younger than Tommy, Jason,
Billy,
Zach,
Billy,
and Trini combined. But the fact that Amy Jo Johnson was like the second eldest cast member also says a lot of probably thinking that she didn't want to be always remembered as this, teen icon forever. She wanted to do more projects outside Power Rangers. I mean, look at her in Suzy Q, look at her in Perfect Body, and even her role as Nancy Nivens in, I think, Sweetwater, I believe. Yeah.
Sweetwater, okay. It's like mid to 2000s. I think this one was later.
No, that was 1999, and she even had a role in Felicity.
Okay, right. So late 90s.
Yeah, she had a role in Felicity as Julie. So you can imagine that Amy Jo Johnson didn't want to limit herself.
Yeah.
It's just the Power Rangers actor.
Yeah, because you see all the time. You see all the time.
Yeah, mind you, she also had actors training during her time in college. So there is that. And she also had a really nice singing career.
She was a vocalist. She did singing as well.
Yes, lovely soprano voice, lyric soprano, I might add.
Right. I'm listening fans. Yeah. Because as you said, like I think we could honestly say they were probably the two most popular from especially the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Yeah. Tommy. From the guys, there was Tommy, and from the girls, there was Kimberly.
Without a doubt, and I think just their relationship on screen as the character, they really did bring a whole audience, because like me and you, there is a whole generation that grew up with the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So when we heard what happened to Jason David Frank, it really felt it. We grew up.
But here's something that's also interesting about Jason David Frank behind the scenes. He was also known for being a very jovial prankster.
Sure.
I mean, the interviews with Karen Ashley and Steve Cardenas and Jason Narvi and even Walter Manuel Jones made it clear that Jason David Frank, he may be one of the most hilarious and energetic people that they'll ever meet, but got to be very careful because he's a prankster. He was a prankster. he tended to pull pranks. And of course, he was kind of the class clown behind the scenes. And Jason Narvi also formulated his statements about Jason David Frank rather well. He's one of those guys who likes to come up with all these sorts of schemes, no matter how good or how bad they are.
Yeah. So he always had that kind of prankster.
Brings his buddies along to any plans that he has, no matter how good or how bad they are.
Yeah. So fancy. Yeah. No. Rest in peace, the great Jason David Frank. You want me
even despite all the problems that Jason David Frank had with certain people, even with Christopher Kamen Lee, there was a 7-year-old video of Christopher Kamen Lee having contention about Jason David Frank when it came to, taking a lot of the props on set. The only prop that Christopher Kamen Lee ended up with was a figure or poster with his character Andros on a hoverboard.
Mhm. Mhm.
But on his Instagram, he said his thoughts about Jason David Frank, stating that they didn't see eye to
I
eye,
know. Mhm.
especially in their tenure on Forever Red.
Mhm.
But one day, Jason David Frank emailed him and said, "Hey, wouldn't you want to bury the hatchet?"
Sure.
And they ended up doing so.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
and I
Good
think
one.
one of the closest friendships that Jason David Frank had was with Jason Font, who you will know as Wes Collins and Alex Drake
Mhm.
from Power Rangers Time Force. Now, if
Time
you're not
Force.
in the know,
Mhm.
Alex Drake was the first Red Ranger,
Mhm.
and then came Wes Collins, who did start off as this rich dude in the lap of luxury, but he wanted a lot more from himself outside money and being this bird in a gilded cage. He wanted
Mhm.
to do more for his life and do something more meaningful. And that's how he ended up becoming a Red Time Force Ranger alongside Jen, Trip, Lucas, and Katie. And, if you thought that Tomberly was a thing, Wes's and Jen's relationship was just absolutely beautiful.
Mhm.
But going back to Jason David Frank and Jason Font, they were very much the closest of friends, almost like
Sure.
brothers. They even ended up working together on a film that's about to be released, The Legend of the
Oh,
White Dragon.
okay. Right, right, right. So that's scheduled for next year, like it's upcoming.
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. I would
And
love to see that in its final performance.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean
Respect.
it is really sad to know that Jason David
Yeah.
Frank unfortunately passed away because there was a whole lot more that he could have done,
Yeah, it's
mostly like
49.
voiceover work.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that I have in mind is, well, if you grew up with Tarzan, more
Mm.
specifically the original Edgar Rice Burroughs novels,
Mhm.
you would realize that those novels are a lot more different than what you've seen in the Disney version,
Okay.
while mostly having elements based from it. And there are some elements that are found in the 1976 Filmation cartoon, as
Mhm.
well as a lot of the many Tarzan films that were released.
Yeah.
I figured that if Tarzan were remade still as a cartoon,
Sure.
but mainly for adults
Right.
and
More of a
older
serious take. More of a, like
teenagers.
a serious take. Hmm.
Yes, exactly, because Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan was not meant for kids
Hmm.
in the slightest. It was pretty much more for a more mature audience
Sure.
because of all the very complex themes that go on with it, and not to mention some of the shocking ways the villains want to do away with their victims.
Right.
Now, if ever there had been a Tarzan cartoon for adults, I could easily imagine Jason David Frank voicing Tarzan,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially with the usage of the Mangani language.
The language that they use between each other.
Yes, for
Mhm.
instance, Kagoda means do you surrender or I surrender in Mangani. Then you have Unk, which is, I think, a Mangani language to tell them to stop.
Sure.
And then you have Kriga Bundolo, which is um, sort of like a battle cry stating that there's going to be a fight that is about to commence. So I could easily imagine Jason David Frank um, as the voice of Tarzan, but for a more mature audience, just utter those lines in Mangani. That would have been
Mhm.
very interesting. And maybe
Yeah.
have Amy Jo Johnson as Jane Porter, because if you know Jane Porter
Okay. Hmm.
in the original Tarzan novels, she wasn't British. No, she was from
Mm.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
She was from the United States of America.
Later got adapted to British character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of
And
voice,
there,
yeah, go on,
yeah,
go. On. Yeah.
yeah, and you'll also realize that there are a lot of Tarzan characters who weren't who didn't even have like an on-screen counterpart, like Kavanda Vanda, the high priest of the Kavuru tribe. Then you also have Malbiat, who is the Lion Man. Then you have like a lot of the cavemen from Bundrock, like the chief of the cavemen, to Arak, the one of the other cavemen. Yeah, there are a lot of Oh yes, and even Darno. Well, Darno was seen in the 1984 Tarzan film with Christopher Lambert in the title role.
Raiden from Mortal Kombat. He was in.
Yeah,
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 legend.
exactly. Um, and then you also, yeah, but I could also understand why Kulonga. Well, Kulonga was also used in the 1984 film, but he suffered a much more different fate than what happened to Kulonga in the novels. Now, if you knew
Yeah.
what happened to Kulonga in the novels, he was the prince of the Mabonga tribe who killed Tarzan's adoptive mother, Kala.
Hmm.
And Tarzan ends up mourning for her death, and he wants to avenge her death. You know what happens? And this is around the time Tarzan was still naked and didn't have his signature loincloth.
Loincloth, right? Fully
Yes, yes,
tetanus.
yes, exactly. So he robs Kulonga's bow and arrow, and he hangs him. He hangs
Hey.
Kulonga and stabs him in the heart. Yeah. So I could understand why that scene was not used for the Disney film because
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
I think Kala's death would have been too much like both Littlefoot's mother's death and Bambi's mother's death.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Definitely.
but I think if it, yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think if it were used in I think if this were used in like and that's why I also think that if ever there was a Tarzan adaptation, well, ideally animated adaptation
Hmm.
for adults and for older viewers, because as I stated before, Tarzan was not really meant for kids in the
Yeah.
first place. I
Hmm.
mean, one of the antagonists, Kavanda Vanda of the Kavuru tribe, he says that why he keeps his his tribe and himself young is because they drink the blood of young virgin women.
Ooh.
So there's also cannibals in Tarzan. So it's very understandable why I would rather have this or
Like
this piece of work
version. Yeah. Then
adapted for an older audience
I
because
see.
there is just
Yeah.
a whole lot of messed up stuff that happens in Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan.
Yeah. I think
Something
Tarzan's
that even
very
the
universal character,
yeah,
so you can't
and
see him
there's
in
just
this.
a hell lot of world building. I mean, not only do you have Opar, but you also have Pellucidar. You have um, Barsoom, where John Carter and Deja Torres are. You
Hmm.
have the Kavuru tribe, and many, many other places where Tarzan finds himself in. I mean, the comics also made it explicitly clear, but why not also have the world building that's done in the comics to also be made for a
Yeah.
cartoon? Because that would have been absolutely thrilling.
Yeah, I also have a question for you, Anthony. Seeing as like now so many comic books have been adapted to feature films, movies, do you think they're doing a good job? Like examples like Marvel, do you think they're adapting the comic books correctly to these film adaptations?
It's kind of difficult to tell
Sure.
because I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to also make a blockbuster hit.
Right.
And sometimes it does feel like there's going to be a little bit of contention with having live action actors on these films, which is also why I would rather prefer it if these were done in animation. I mean,
Okay.
you can call it that person in me who cannot always like shake off the memories that I've had of the Justice League cartoon because it's
Whew.
just so beautifully done.
Masterpiece. Masterpiece. Whew. That's
And
Bruce
I
Timm's
definitely
universe.
love all the 7 superheroes on the League.
Yeah.
Batman, Superman, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, The Flash, Wonder Woman, and Hawk Girl. These are the 7 GOTs of all time.
The goat.
So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that was it all
Or
came
excuse
from
me,
the
GOATs of all time. Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It all came from the Bruce Timm universe that started from Batman the animated series and went all the way to Justice League. So it's
Oh yeah.
incredible storytelling. What do you think about that, like voiceovers? Because I know you've dabbled and done like voiceovers before, Antoni. What goes into like doing voice work? Like, explain it.
In rudimentary terms, it's also about knowing your character inside and out, and not just knowing it, but actually being it. And also understanding what's the appropriate voice you can use for the character, what inflections need to be present. Because after all, voice acting is not just about um, doing all these voices,
Right,
but also giving it dimension. That's where
right,
the
very
acting
good.
part comes. And that's where the acting part is challenging. You have to be real under these imaginary circumstances. For instance, if you are in an action scene and your character is kicked or
Right.
punched in the gut, you have to really emit that.
Okay. Gonna really feel that the one audience have to kind of feel that you're being
Yes,
kicked.
exactly.
And yeah,
When you feel pain, this is something I like to quote from Michael Smallwood when he was singing Pedrillo from Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's Die Entführung aus dem Serail, or the abduction of the Seraglio in the Dutch National Opera.
cool.
I should know because I also have that on DVD.
Excellent.
When you feel pain, there are noises that you make whenever something is inflicted on you.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes.
So you
Yes.
have to make that both tangible and believable.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's funny when you mention that. I remember because I'm a big Dragon Ball Z fan. If you don't know, I've seen so many of the different, like as they say, dubs. I've seen like the English dub, the American dub, the Spanish dub, the French dub. So many different dubs, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the dubs I have seen when like their main character Goku is in a fight, they don't really emit the pain or like the struggle that Goku's in, and it could sound better in another dub. Like, have you noticed
Yeah,
that with some? Yeah, some animations.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
I mean,
it's
I grew up in the
yeah,
Philippines, so
right,
there was also the English dub of Dragon Ball Z.
right.
Um, that was also, or excuse me, Dragon Ball Z movies 5 and 6 that were
That was good.
compiled as one movie called The Greatest Rivals.
Cooler, yeah,
And
cooler.
unlike the American English dub where they had a woman voice young Gohan, it's
Mm,
Stephanie Nadolny. Did you know who they had voice young Gohan?
who was it?
An actual 12-year-old boy by the name of EJ Galang.
Ah,
And that
okay.
was back when I was living in the Philippines.
Right, right.
So there was this company in the Philippines known as Creative Products,
Sure,
and
sure.
they made their own English dub of Dragon Ball Z and the Dragon Ball franchise. Well,
Yeah.
most specifically Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what was so noticeable about when the voice actors for Goku, Piccolo, Krillin, and Gohan, namely Nesty Ramirez,
Mm-hmm.
Nesty Calvo Ramirez, who voiced Goku, Apollo Abraham, who voiced Krillin, Raymond Buico, who voiced Piccolo, and EJ Galang, who voiced Gohan, is that their kiais or battle cries in martial arts, it's absolutely powerful. It's absolutely
Right.
strong.
Yeah.
And that was something I
You.
wanted to emulate ever since I was a lot younger.
Sure. Sure.
And even if you know your seiyu
Hmm.
or Japanese voice
Oh
actors,
yeah.
because going back to those four, they really had well modulated voices to make these characters and their battle cries and their battle yells come to
Yeah.
full life, which
Cool,
is
right?
absolutely awesome.
Yeah. 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 When they're
Um,
doing the blast, when you want to feel when
yeah,
Goku's doing the Kamehameha, you want to really feel the amount of like power.
yeah, and even when they do their hayas or
Hiya!
haya, it's like you really, it's like you really got to mean it.
Yeah.
And then when you have when you travel to, like, let's say Japan, or like go to the Seiyu side of things, like you have voice actors like Nobuyuki Hiyama, who was known for doing Hiei from Yu Yu Hakusho and Siegfried from the Soul Calibur
Soul
series.
Calibur series. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yes, yes. You'll realize that he has a very strong and powerful tenor voice when he does those epic yells. When you hear him speak, he sounds rather chill and mellow. And not to mention, he has a beautiful singing voice.
Yeah, it's very
Beautiful tenor
interesting.
singing
Yeah,
voice.
when you meet them in person and you find the characters that they're able to portray, they really get in for the role. Once they actually do the role, it's like they kind of change to that, and that's
Yeah,
a mark of a great actor.
definitely. And what's also fascinating about a lot of Seiyu is that they also have singing careers.
Mhm.
From the men, you have Nobuyuki Hiyama, Suichiro Hoshi, Toshiyuki Morikawa, Nobutoshi Kanna, Koichi Yamadera, Toshihiko Seki, and Nozomu Sasaki. Yeah, interestingly, the interesting thing about Koichi Yamadera is that he was not only a voice actor and singer, but he's also a talento, a dancer, a TV show host, a live action actor. He did a whole lot of stuff. And even though his voice is mainly that of a baritone and does a lot of adult male roles, he also does a lot of comic characters.
Right.
He has an extremely wide range,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
he's also very much one voice actor I would give the title of man of a thousand
That's the
voices.
voices. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when it comes to the women, you have Megumi Hayashibara, Kotono Mitsuishi, Michiko Neya,
Yeah.
Satsuki Yukino, Tomoko
That's for the
Kawakami.
Japanese. It feels the
Yeah,
Japanese voiceover artist are
yes,
pretty good
and
stuff. Yeah.
and yeah, I already said Tomoko
Yeah.
Kawakami,
Mhm.
and who was that? Hoko Kuwashima, and who do I want to add? Yes, Yumi. Yes, I believe I wanted to add Yumitoma on
You meet
there.
them around that.
Yeah, because they're also, because especially Megumi Hayashibara, she is absolutely versatile. I mean, you give her any role and she'll pull it off in an instant, whether it's a child character or a or or a teenager or a young woman or
Mhm.
comical character, she'll pull it off. And she also has a very lengthy singing career.
Yeah, most of them. And Tony, seeing as we are in the holiday season, Christmas is tomorrow. What do you think you could recommend to people watching this for Christmas? Like, what Christmas movie or even TV series do you think you could recommend?
For Christmas specials and cartoons, I would recommend Arnold's Christmas from Hey Arnold.
Oh, cool.
I
Hey
would
Arnold.
argue that when it comes to Christmas specials, Arnold's Christmas is up there with the best
Okay,
because
sure.
it doesn't have anything to do with Santa Claus or the consumerist side of Christmas. but it's mainly about the hurt and trauma that Mr. Huynh felt when he had to give up his daughter so that she could have a better life in America.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows that behind that ebullient and very vivacious personality that Mr. Huynh had is a lonely soul who missed his
Yeah.
daughter so much.
Yeah.
And you can imagine all the hurdles Arnold, Gerald, and even Helga had to go through in order for Mr. Huynh to have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And especially when Helga had to give up her Nancy Spumoni boots in order for the caseworker to have Mr. Huynh be reunited with his daughter May, or Mai, excuse me.
Mai.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ending is just very touching.
Yeah.
You will definitely have your heart melt when you watch Arnold's Christmas from Hey Arnold.
Yeah. I feel it's time to revisit. Like I haven't seen Hey Arnold in maybe a decade now. Because again, they didn't show reruns, and because everyone's watching streaming, I don't see Hey Arnold on Netflix or anything on. So it's a perfect time, folks, maybe for Christmas to rewatch some of the greatness of Hey Arnold.
Absolutely. I mean, there is no doubt that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air also had a lot of, actually 4 Christmas specials, but the one I would recommend is from season 2, Christmas Show.
Yeah.
There was a whole lot more going on with it.
Yeah.
And I'd say that it's actually a step above the first Christmas special from season 1.
Yeah. This is where they're at the resort. They ski and resort.
Yes.
And they get robbed.
Robbed an unsuspecting passerby.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel personally for me, Antoni, I feel season 2 was just again just a step up from the other seasons. Like it just hit it. All the jokes, the timing, and they also knew when to play the serious episodes as well.
Exactly. And this was also where James Avery's and Janet Hubert's on-screen chemistry was also at its strongest. Because after season 3 rolled around, it was never going to be the same again.
Yes. I remember we talked about the second and Viv, that being Michael Reed. It just isn't. She just didn't have the gravitas that the original and Viv had, Janet Hubert.
I'd argue that Daphne Maxwell Reid was a lot stronger with her real life husband, Tim Reid.
Okay.
Especially where Snoops is concerned. Heck, you can even watch Snoops on YouTube.
On YouTube. They still have the shorts on that.
I would definitely love to review that mystery dramedy because it is so witty and the interpersonal chemistry of Tim Reid and Daphne Maxwell Reid is at its finest. Oh, and there's also Frank's Place, another rare show I would love to visit, let alone revisit.
Yeah.
And when it comes to another Christmas special from a Black sitcom, the Christmas episode with Rock is another one that's worth recommending.
Right. I'm seriously contending to do a review on Rock. I just need to watch a couple more episodes, but definitely look out for that. I would love to. It's one I've been delaying, but it's coming soon.
Yeah. I mean, anime doesn't have, at least in my opinion, the longest running track record of Christmas specials.
Sure.
But what I could recommend also is Holy Night from Chrono Crusade.
Okay, Holy Night. I'm gonna put that down.
It's the Christmas episode from Chrono Crusade, and it's quite lovely.
Excellent, excellent. All right, awesome. And Anthony, just to round it up, you talked about your reviews that you have coming. What can we see next year from you, Anthony? Like what like reviews or even for the channel, voiceover, acting, what can we see next year for you,
I
Anthony?
think you might see a lot more of my stuff on DeviantArt.
Bernard, okay.
Hopefully. I'm not so sure about YouTube though, because you
Sure.
know, my life as a university student,
Yeah,
always gonna be busy. There's always
sure.
gonna be coursework being handed in, but you know, regardless, there might be the occasional review on YouTube because,
Sure.
as you can already tell, December is pretty much the busiest time for me
Yeah,
for content to be released on YouTube after like 11 months of
yeah,
not releasing anything to my channel, which is kind of sad, but at the same time, well, reality and you know, exploring other things outside being a
yeah.
YouTuber,
Mhm.
it's a whole lot more fun than I can give it credit for.
Yeah, yeah. That's even I think is a great even advice. Like don't like invest all your time on YouTube. Like there are other ways outside, like DeviantArt. Some people use like even short videos on TikTok. So don't just invest your whole time and energy on YouTube when you do have a busy schedule, such as yourself, Antonio. So yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Awesome. So yeah, and Tony, once again, thanks again for taking time out your busy schedule to come on. I'm actually gonna, if you can, send me the links of your artist colleagues, the ones you've like helped you with the thumbnails. I'd love to put that in the links below so they can check out their deviant art work as well.
Yes, I
Yeah.
certainly will.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be excellent. Yeah, so I'm gonna put all Antoni's links. Definitely go to his YouTube channel and subscribe. I don't know what you're waiting for. Go there, subscribe, like, comment. All of these videos will be great. So yeah. So Antoni, any final words you wanna leave this?
I just want to wish you all the happiest of holidays. May your lives and may your families continue to keep safe in these continuously trying times. And may we hopefully find peace and continued solidarity in the upcoming year.
Perfect, perfect. My sentiments exactly, folks. So yes, that's. Really thank for Antoni again for coming on. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all, and we'll see you on the next video. So take care.
Happy holidays.